My name is Moonpetrie, and every time I try to film outdoors, I realize there's a random pool noodle in the shot. So it is really starting to sort of feel like spring here in Vermont. I think this is my last patch of snow. They still have a good bit next door though. And I'm getting ready for Camp NaNo. So I did an announcement video earlier in the month about what my project will be. I will link to that in case you haven't watched it and you want to. It's a short video, but I wanted to talk a little bit about my process this time. Every time is different, every book is different, and even though I am a pantser, the degree to which I fly by the seat of my pants varies. And especially when a project is not in the genre or category that I am most comfortable with. I have mostly written YA fantasy, portal fantasy specifically. And this project is going to be a contemporary and a middle grade. Now, I am getting away with writing contemporary and not fantasy because it's about fantasy. So this is a book about fandom. So I started with an idea that felt pretty fully formed, actually. It came to me with a lot of its parts, and often I get an idea that's more of just a flash, an image, a piece of concept, or a setting in particular. And this felt like it had a lot of its parts just sort of land in my lap together, all as one thing. And so that feels like more like outlining than most things that I have done, because usually I don't know as much as I did for this. So the first thing that I did was just a brain dump. I wrote down everything that I was thinking in no particular order, any old which way, just getting thoughts out of my brain. Now, because this is trying to address some issues, I felt like theme was a thing I wanted to actually make a specific effort about. And so I wrote down just a few sentences, theme stated, as they say in Save the Cat, trying to make sure that I had clarity from the beginning about what I was actually trying to say on this subject. Then I did write down the Save the Cat beats, and I jotted down something, a phrase at least, for most of the beats. Literally just bullet points, not scenes at all. I have never in my life outlined scene by scene or chapter by chapter. I cannot imagine how people do that. But I did, try to figure out what's happening when in the story and make it sort of fit that Save the Cat template. Then I decided I really wanted a twist. I love a good twist, and I feel like a moment of oh is one of the main things that I read for, and so I wanted to write that. And although I didn't feel like this is the kind of book that required it, I wanted it. So I just sort of brain dumped, wrote down a bunch of possibilities until I had one that I liked more than the others, and I wrote a little bit more about that. Just, again, not figuring out like where it's gonna fit in at any point, but just almost like a subplot that leads to a moment of revelation. And so just some thoughts on that, very loosey-goosey. Then I wrote down what roles needed to be filled. So this takes place in middle school, so I'm gonna need some authority figures, some adults. There's a big sister. I wanted an important big sister in it. So I just wrote down, here are a handful of what's probably going to be the most important sort of players. They don't have names. And just tried to attribute some characteristics to them to make them very distinct from each other. Basically, starting with my main character, what I knew I wanted for her for her to struggle with and for her to care deeply about. And juxtaposed with her traits, I wanted the other characters to seem very distinct, very different from her, and for there to be some space for there to be strife between her and the others because of their differences, but also potentially the opportunity to learn from each other or benefit from having different strengths. Next, names. They don't have names. I don't assign names generally before I'm writing, but I do usually make a name list. Now, I love the Social Security Administration website. As an American, it has the top 1,000 baby names given to boys and to girls since 1889 or something like that. And so if you think about when are my characters likely to have been born, you can look up that time period and see what names were popular then. So I need a group of middle schoolers. So I'm looking at, ideal world, traditional publication. It'll take a few years. So I was looking at, I think maybe 2010 for what names were popular then. I get confused sometimes in a book when too many characters have names that start with the first letter or that rhyme. And so I make an alphabetical list of names so that I can just grab a name from the list when I need to name a character, and I know that I won't be duplicating letters because I have one name for each letter on my list. I did that also with surnames, and I'm gonna need some teachers as well as surnames for some of my students. Now, I live in Vermont, as I said, and here we have a lot of English surnames and a lot of French surnames. So if I just pulled up names that seem familiar to me, I would be very sort of ethnically skewed as compared to the rest of America. We have a really small Latinx population, so I wouldn't automatically think, oh, here's a Spanish surname. This is very common and people will know this name. I have to give myself a push on that. So I looked for surnames again by letter and tried to find a variety in terms of ethnicity and language that they come from. I will link below to the resource that I used for that because it was super helpful. Then I just jotted down some things I wanted to try to include. Some stuff I haven't tried before that I think would be fun. Because this is about fiction and this is about books, I want to use epigraphs. I want to use fake quotes from the books that my character loves for my chapter heading. So I just wrote that down, that I wanted to do epigraphs, and a bunch of other things, stuff that I love that I want to include, ideas about words that have to do with words and books, interesting words that are specifically about that. It would be cool if my character is sort of a collector of these unique words. Bunch of different ideas, and a lot of it does have to do with books and words and libraries and things that I think my character would really love, as well as things that I love, because I'm going to write better about things that matter to me. Next, I thought about tone, and Michelle Schusterman had an amazing video on this subject. I will link that as well, and you should definitely watch what she had to say about it. I want my character to be very cozy, very snug, very into things being comforting and small and safe for her. This is going to be a thing, obviously, she's going to have to break out of a little, but for the tone, I wanted it to be clear that that's what she tries to create for herself. And so I went so far as to make a list of words. Now, a lot of these words will be used descriptively or figuratively, so I'm not necessarily going to be talking about a nest, but to say that something was, nestled in or something, rather than just she put it in a box. She nestled it safely into the box. to try to just sort of infuse that tone throughout whatever else I happen to be writing about for her. For much of it, I'm going to want points where the language is more stark, where she feels really pushed out of her comfort zone later on. But I came up with this fun list of words. I don't know how useful it's going to be, but I enjoyed doing it. Then I wrote down some stuff about the books, things that I wanted the books to be about. I, came up with a name for the author and stuff so I can just grab from that more easily. I am not super attached to the stuff that I wrote down. It's just a brainstorm in case I need to just grab something quickly if I'm feeling stuck while I'm writing. These books are going to be a huge part of her life and something that is discussed a lot with the people that she cares about throughout my book. Then watching a vlog that Lindsay Puckett just put out, I was reminded how much I struggle with revising the character arcs repeatedly on some of my books. And so her recommendation, in addition to, that they have a false belief that they need to realize that they're going about things the wrong way. So I was trying to think about that for this character, but also to jot something down regarding character arc, where she is emotionally at the different points in my Save the Cat beat sheet. So again, just a few words about how the thing affects her emotionally, or where she is at, or how she is reacting to it, to make sure that it does change, grow, develop. She gets pushed a lot, and that how she reacts to things does change as she grows throughout the story. I don't feel like I did a fantastic job, but I gave it a shot. And the last thing at this point is asking myself some questions. So just reading through what I had written down already and saying, what else do I need to know? Where there's some strange holes, like her parents, her home, does she have any pets? I had this important relationship with her sister, and then a bunch of like her friends and stuff that goes on at school, and her like fantasy life. But I hadn't included anything about her parents. So just sort of trying to see what it is that I haven't spotted, that I haven't brainstormed or even really thought about, and just jotting down the questions. I'm not really answering them. I'm just giving myself space to think about them. So altogether, this is not a very significant amount of brainstorming. This is a pretty limited amount of stuff that I have written down, but it still feels like a lot for me personally, especially since this is probably going to be the shortest first draft that I've written. I set my goal on the NaNo website to 40,000 words, so a little less than a traditional NaNo, and I'm hoping that that is most, if not all, of the first draft. So that's a little peek into my process. Ooh, and my cold, windy spring Vermont backyard, and my pool noodle. And until next time, I am Moon Petrie, and I'm getting so excited about camp. It's really putting a crimp on my willingness to keep doing the revisions that I said I was going to get done before April. Let me know down below what you are working on, how your process varies from project to project, especially what it's like for you when you have switched category or genre or both. I would love to hear from you.